Hey everyone, this is Isaac and welcome back to Isaac Reviews 2024. A while back, I made a retrospective video on the Kung Fu Panda franchise. Just to recap, the first two are easily among some of DreamWorks Animation's best. They have some top-notch action and incredible animation, all while being amazingly written and thematically rich. The third one was admittedly a step down from the previous two, but I still had a decent time watching it. But it seems Poe's story is not quite finished yet, since we're now on to the fourth entry in this long-running series. Now, given the consistently good quality of these movies, I was hoping that the awesomeness could continue with this next installment. After watching it on Thursday, however, it's certainly miles ahead of the previous sequel DreamWorks released this month, but I'm not gonna lie, Kung Fu Panda 4 was a massive letdown and easily the weakest movie in the franchise. Each of the previous films explored a different aspect of Poe's role as the Dragon Warrior, and that continues here where he has to find a successor. But while looking for a new Dragon Warrior, a new threat emerges in the form of the Chameleon, a shape-shifting sorceress who can transform into some of the most powerful martial arts masters in all of China, including some of Poe's previous adversaries. Because she's super difficult to find, Poe needs to find someone who can lead him to her, and his guide ends up being a street thief by the name of Zhen, so the two will have to travel to the bustling Juniper City and stop the Chameleon before she can become more powerful. The biggest problem with Kung Fu Panda 4, in my opinion, would have to be the script. It severely lacks the same thematic richness of the first two, even if I do like the messages on the importance of change and redemption. And I believe the Chameleon is the biggest example of how disappointing the writing was. Now yes, Viola Davis's performance was good, and I do think that her transformations were really cool. Apparently they were inspired by AI art, which I actually think was a creative choice for presenting how uncanny they are. But she felt really underwhelming compared to the other three villains. Even if their motives and backstories were different, we were still shown early on that these characters were threats. As for the Chameleon, the most we see of her as a threat is of her pushing someone down a flight of stairs with that person surviving. Like, you're telling me this is from the same franchise where one of the villains is shown to have massacred an entire village of pandas? And her motive for why she's evil is because she was too small to learn Kung Fu? What about Mantis or Viper? Shouldn't their status as Kung Fu masters invalidate the claim that she's too small for Kung Fu? And Zhen is around the same height as the Chameleon and she learns Kung Fu at the end of the film, so why should the Chameleon be any different? Speaking of Zhen, she's fine, I guess. I enjoyed her dynamic with Poe, but her whole development felt really predictable. Like, yeah, it wasn't hard to realize that she'd secretly be working for the Chameleon, but later turn against her before becoming the new Dragon Warrior in the end. And we hardly even see the Furious Five in this movie. The most we get is a brief explanation for their absence and a cameo from them during the credits. I know they were supposed to show up originally, but they weren't able to because of studio interference, but it's still sad that this had to be the outcome. I guess everyone else is also fine. Poe's dad's easily had the best scenes in the movie, I like the Den of Thieves led by Ke Huy Quan, and Poe is just his usual self minus any compelling development. Another problem I have with Kung Fu Panda 4 is that the pacing is really bad. It hardly has any time to breathe as it's constantly jumping from one plot point to the next, being held together by lame references and weak world building. Despite all these problems, this is not to say that I thought Kung Fu Panda 4 was bad or anything. In fact, there were some aspects that kept it above some of the other films we got from DreamWorks in the 2020s. For one, like its predecessors, the animation and action scenes are great. Admittedly, the fights do lack the same excitement and energy as the ones in the first two films, but the characters make creative uses of their environments, the choreography is pretty good, and the score is excellent per the standards of Hans Zimmer. Like, there's a full-on instrumental remix of Crazy Train during a chase scene, and it genuinely kicks ass. At the end of the day, however, Kung Fu Panda 4 may not be a bad movie, but it's still a massive disappointment. It has some great action and animation and a few good scenes here and there, but it suffers from having some terrible writing and pacing, a frustratingly predictable story, and easily the worst villain to come from this franchise. For any fans of the previous three movies, it's a harmless enough watch either theatrically or on streaming, but I'd strongly advise not getting your hopes up too high. It's likely that the franchise will continue, and in that regard, I just hope that this is the only low point in the series and that whatever comes next can possibly be better. Funny enough, it was originally planned for there to be 6 of these movies, which is the score I'm giving this one, a 6 out of 10. Next time, I'll be talking about Imaginary. Turns out it's one of 2 major movies coming out this spring that are centered around imaginary friends, and despite If not coming out until May, I'm already certain that this one will be the inferior of the two. Anyways, thanks for watching this episode of Isaac Reviews 2024. If you like the video and want to see more like it, then consider subscribing to the Isaac Carthy channel. See you all next time!